Did your girls have fun at camp?
Oh, they had a blast.
Yeah.
Like, didn't miss me at all.
I know. Isn't that crazy? I mean, wonderful and crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were ready to go back.
I didn't miss Eleanor until about Thursday. They left on Sunday. And about Thursday, I was like, oh, I'm really missing her. But she talks as much as I do, so it was a good break for both of us. So anyway, but listen, I think we've talked about this, but it's worth repeating. When I went to pick Eleanor up and drove up to her bunk, and I got out and I saw B and I saw Eleanor, and the counselor walked up to me very serious. And she's like, Mrs. Job, can I talk to you for a moment? I was like, oh my goodness, yes.
What is it?
What did she do?
Say?
What did she do? What did she say? And so, hey, Eleanor, go talk to B for a second. So I was, yes. And she said, so Eleanor told me that she's really sad all the time, and she thinks she needs to go to a counselor. So I rolled my eyes, and I was like, and then you feel obligated to explain yourself, because I do want the counselor to think I'm taking her seriously. Mm-hmm. And I just said, we talk about counseling a lot because of what I do. And one of her siblings has gone to some counseling. One of her friends is. I think she desperately wants to know what happens in counseling, and I just think she wants to figure it out. I think she's okay. And she almost kind of reprimanded me, like, well, she was confiding in me, and I just thought you'd want to know. And I felt so embarrassed because I wasn't able to take her seriously. I'm just like, everything's fine.
Eleanor, so the camp sends out an email and is like, these are the prayer requests for this week.
Was Eleanor on the list?
Well, they didn't name her, but they were like, campers are confiding to their counselors some pretty heavy things that the counselors are trying to figure out how to navigate and support the campers. So, just be in prayer for them. And
well, I did go
Eleanor's one of the campers that needs prayer.
I went straight home, and I did tell Brian, because I did take it seriously. And I'm like, Brian, we might need to get Eleanor some help. And Brian's like, we need to take these kids out and show them the real world. They have no idea what issues really are like. And she's happy all the time. So I'm not buying it.
Well, she definitely has mom issues.
We do need to get her straight to some. Anyway, I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but I did feel a little humiliated in the moment.
You might take her to counseling and just let the counselor set her straight to say, because you're not going to be able to do it.
That's true.
And
let her say,
the
you're
counselor
fine.
is going to say, you have a really great mom. So stop.
Yeah. Pull it together.
Yeah.
Girl. Pull it together and move on. Anyway. So I say all that to say I'm one of the rare few that actually pretty much tells all my stuff to everybody. But why are we afraid to tell one another when we need help?
Yeah.
Humiliation. That's why. Because our kids are telling the world that they need to go to counseling.
Our kids are misbehaving. I have one child that his whole life has been constantly getting into trouble. And
I don't agree with that. Okay, go ahead.
He's wonderful, but is very strong-willed and is going to do whatever he wants to do.
Sure.
And there were a lot of times in his elementary years where I was absolutely just humiliated at the things that he would do. And I remember one time he got sent to the principal's office for fighting. And I mean, I just felt so much shame over, I have a bad kid. Or, no, I didn't think he was a bad kid. I am a bad mom.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That I haven't disciplined him enough. And he was getting disciplined all the time. Probably in hindsight, maybe too much. Maybe we needed to try something different with him. But it was weekly. I remember one time we went to the chiropractor's office, and maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention to him. I don't know.
Oh, surely not your fault.
Some lady comes bursting into the lobby with my son in tow, and she's like, whose child is this? This has happened to me more than once. whose child is this? And I'm like, me? And she goes like, he was climbing up the side of the building and getting on the roof. And I yelled at him to get down and he ignored me. So I had to park my car and get out and pull him down off the roof of the building.
And you're like, let him be.
Yeah, maybe he'll fall and learn a lesson about climbing up the side of a building.
Since it's obvious to me who we're talking about now, can I just say that he's a free spirit and he's an explorer and he's an adventurer, but maybe he hasn't outgrown any of that yet because last summer, can we tell this story to the world?
I don't know it. Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. Let's talk about parental humiliation.
Last summer, our kids were playing, and only two kids in particular were together and had been riding bikes off through the neighborhood, exploring. And they come upon what they determine is an abandoned school. Well, abandoned because it was summer break, but it's not an abandoned building or an abandoned school. And they just decided to climb the school, scale the wall, climb the school, get up on the third story of the building just to see what they could see. And interrupt me at any time in case I'm telling this wrong, but they're on the third story when the police show up. They had set off a silent alarm. The police show up, and what's funny is it's our two kids and one neighborhood boy, and the neighborhood boy is like, "Cops, run!" And thank the good Lord that our kids were like, "No, don't run.
Don't run." I think that they hid. Like maybe they won't see us, but the cops were like, "Guys, we know you're up there. Come down."
These are not young children. They were 15 and 14 at the time. So anyway, they have to come down. The cops like handcuff their bikes to a pole so they can't escape. And they're sitting on the curb crying.
The police called me. Yeah. Out of all four numbers that the kids were given the option of calling.
We need to call your parent. Give us their phone number. And everybody, just Heather's number. So Heather's phone, we're playing Catan. And Heather's phone rings, and she sends it to voicemail, and it rings again the same. Anyway, 1 or 2 or 3 times. She ends up answering the phone.
So I'm like, I better answer this if they called back.
You better take it from here.
Is this Mrs. George? Yes. This is Tulsa Police, and we are at Edison High School with your son and his friend, and we need you to come down and pick them up. And you're like, oh my gosh.
So we did what any responsible parent would do. We sent our husbands.
Yeah, you go pick him up. I cannot do this. Anyway, they got off with a slap on the wrist
from the police, yeah. And Brian and Whit made them ride their bikes back home and think about it before they would talk to them about it, which I think was good because they were terrified when they got back. But kids do humiliating things.
Yeah, they do. They will put you through the ringer.
Yeah. Okay, so why wouldn't you ask for help let's start with parenting and then let's move on to like a job situation or a life situation because we've got all different people listening from all different seasons of life. But let's say one of your kids is going through something. Why wouldn't you ask someone else for help?
When I think about, especially when you're a young mom, like maybe even your first baby, there's all this idea of how it should go.
Right.
How it should be that, you're going to birth this baby and that birth should be quick and painless, or even if you're have mentally prepared yourself for the way it is in movies, that it'll be screaming and cursing, whatever it is that you've mentally prepared yourself for. Once that baby is born, you are imagining bliss.
Oh, my word.
And a room full of love and just a beautiful baby that smiles and coos and a glowing mom. And reality is nights without sleep, days without showers, a messy house, stinky clothes. I mean, you've been spit up on. I mean, it's a lot of times those first few weeks, months of being a mom are exhausting and devastating because this is not how you had imagined it would go.
It doesn't have to be your first child. When we had Eleanor, I don't remember the day of the week. It doesn't really matter. We were going to be checking out of the hospital on a Saturday. Chase was a ring bearer in a wedding that Saturday. And I planned on just wearing Eleanor in one of those swaddler wrap things and standing at the back and watching my little boy be a ring bearer. Like it was going to be so sweet because, early on they just sleep all the time and be fine. What we didn't know until Eleanor was 6 months old was that she had a dairy allergy. And so everything she was eating was hurting her and she was screaming all the time. Before we even checked her out of the hospital, like putting her into her car seat, she was just screaming, nonstop screaming. And I was like, I can't go to this wedding and have my baby screaming the whole time. So that was my third baby I brought home. And I still thought it would be better. It would be different. It would be easier.
But I think it's our should that keeps us from asking for help. Like, I'm not doing this right. I should be this kind of mom, or things should be going this way. And it keeps us from, then it's embarrassment, humiliation, or shame that keeps us from that relationship, that connection.
So we don't ask for help in our life as parents, sometimes because of shame or we would be humiliated. What about in the workplace? I think too often people carry the burden of a project. Sometimes you procrastinate even working on a project because it's too much for you to handle, but you're afraid to ask for help. Why?
Because possibly you're going to be seen as unqualified for your job, or
weakness.
It's weakness.
Or maybe you've asked for help before and no one helped.
Oh.
So then like, no, never again.
Yeah.
Then you put yourself in a very precarious situation where you're training yourself to not ask for help. Interesting. We at our church, we have an organizational structure that's very collaborative, and so you're going to get your best work done working with other people, getting other perspectives, having people weigh in and speak into things. And although that's very beautiful, you're also going to be in meetings where people don't like your point of view on something, don't agree with what you bring to the table. And if you can be in a healthy position and receive that as an opportunity to grow, it's beautiful. But if you care about your vision or your idea and you're holding it too tightly, man, it can be super painful. So I think sometimes we don't ask for help because what if my idea or me is rejected, either by people not stepping up to help or people not liking what I was going to do.
Yeah. Well, and then we attach so much of our significance and worth to our work,
Absolutely.
Our ideas, our parenting, our marriage, that if it's not perfect, then I'm not perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting recording a podcast because I don't tend to care that much what other people think. But now that we're in season 2, we occasionally have some comments that I don't think are that nice. I'm just like, who do you think you are? We do care. We do care about the things that we put our blood, sweat, and tears into, whether we're raising kids or performance at work. And we don't want to be seen as less than.
We kind of surfaced a lot of situations where we feel like we can't ask for help or won't ask for help, or what's the hindrance for us to ask and engage in the community in whatever respect that might be, whether it's home, work, or whatever. But let's just go a little bit deeper and talk about this underbelly of...
I love that word.
The underbelly. You lay on your back and let me scratch your belly.
Oh my goodness. What just happened?
That's what came to my mind.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
The underbelly of church world, especially when something is happening in your personal life or your work life, and you do or don't ask for help, and the response that you get from that church community. Because I know that for so many people, This has been a rejection that feels like a rejection from church community and has pushed people out of the church over something that happens. I mean, I've known people that have gone through a divorce and felt rejected by the church because they got divorced.
Oh, man. When we had our 20-week ultrasound with Audrey, our daughter that was stillborn, and we knew that she had a medical condition and it was serious, most likely terminal. I went to an appointment, had a bad report. The next day we had to go back and see a specialist. We were together. We left that appointment and came straight to the church for prayer. And I remember at the time, and I understand it, but that the pastor that was going to pray with us said, what scripture are you standing on so I can agree with you? We were too broken in that moment I hadn't tried to hear from the Lord. I hadn't thought of a scripture. And I can't remember the situation perfectly clear, but just remember feeling like because I didn't bring a scripture that he wasn't going to be able to pray for us. And it was on us. And not that that's all bad, because it was between us and the Lord, but just feeling like I ran to a lifeline and I was rejected. Like if you don't know what to believe God for in this situation, that sucks.
Yeah.
Just feeling rejected. I think in the church, when your teenage kids are struggling with something, it's scary to ask for help because what if you're rejected? What if your kid's rejected?
Because you've done something wrong in your parenting.
That's what everyone says.
If your kid is sinning, messing up, whatever, rebelling, you've done something wrong as a parent. And, I've had moments with my 3 older kids. My 2 little ones are pretty much perfect, but the 3 older ones...
They're not old enough to have really fallen into a deep level of sin.
So Zuzu, number 4 in the lineup, honestly, doesn't get into trouble.
Yeah.
Even B doesn't really get into trouble, but Zuzu for sure doesn't get into trouble. Like she hears the word spankin' in our house and immediately you see this look come on her face of, do I have any unconfessed sin? And I'm going to get it out right now before she just doesn't do anything wrong. And I've tried to look for things for her that she's done wrong just so I can have moments, teachable moments.
Yeah, correct that child.
To correct her. But anyway, so we'll leave her out of this story. But the older 3 for sure have done things where they have lied to my face or lied to a teacher's face or even, other things that they've done that you are just...
Or intentionally hurt someone with their words at school or,
Where they're getting called into the principal's office or they're pushing the limits of acceptable behavior and,
Why people don't ask for help, I don't know. But when you said that, it made me think one of my kids was called into the principal's office once and... I remember thinking when I got the call, oh, no, not my child. And I don't know, the knee-jerk reaction sometimes is protect, control. That would never happen to my child. I was in my mind questioning the principal instead of questioning, could my child who was born with a sin nature have messed up?
Yeah. That you just think, surely not. There's an explanation. There's an explanation.
Yeah.
Like my oldest, he has, gotten into trouble several times, and sometimes he'll call me first. Like you're about to get.
That's smart. Call. I tell my kids, I better hear it from you.
You're going to get an email,
and anybody else.
And so he can give me his side of the story.
Yeah, good for him.
And with raising these 3 kids. And even keeping in the back of my mind these 2 little ones that seem to be perfect is they are sinful creatures and they will sin and they will willfully make choices that are bad for them, bad for the people around them, whatever it might be, that I have to come into situations with them with the full understanding that these are sinful creatures, that they really... have no idea what they're doing.
And it will be embarrassing at times. And it will be a hard pill to swallow at times that that's something that they chose to do.
And with that understanding, when I'm asking for help from people, I am careful who I ask for help from.
Sure.
Because I'm going to ask people who love my kids, who love me. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to tell everybody what's going on with them, but I am going to ask people who love me and love my kids for help. And with the understanding that not only are they sinful, but their choices are not reflective of who I am.
Yeah.
That they are making choices for themselves. I've done my best. Every day I'm doing my best. I'm trying, but they are responsible for themselves to a certain extent.
So Heather, do you feel like you're good at asking for help?
I think so. I think so. I often, I'm reaching out to people that are a couple of steps ahead of me, that I'm like, tell me that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Tell me that they're going to make it through 15.
Right.
This person that just isn't in control of their emotions half the time. Tell me that it's going to be okay. And oftentimes, you just hear from parents that I trust and I know love me, that they say, yes, it's going to be fine.
Right.
It's going to be fine. And then they'll share a story of their own kids, of what they went through when they were 15 and how they thought that, oh my goodness, this is going to hell in a handbasket here. And I don't know. I don't know if I need to cut the rope on the basket or,
One thing you said that I think is valuable is having friendships, people that you trust in different seasons of life. As you are, I think often we gravitate towards, for good reason, people that are walking through the same trenches we are. Like, we can do life together and it be a lot of fun, and we can commiserate with one another, and we can say this is so hard together because it is, all those things. But if you don't ever get an outside perspective, sometimes you're really missing out. Just having someone, like you said, a little bit ahead of you. I think sometimes people don't ask for help because they've asked someone and they've asked the wrong someone. Like, they've asked someone that's struggling. I've seen this in women's small groups at our church too. People often want to circle up in a small group with people just like them. And I get that. I do understand that. But without someone that can bring a different perspective. So I have seen sometimes women that have just recently gotten a divorce, and then you get 6 of them all in a circle together, and you are commiserating with one another, and you need that. You need that friendship. But then it's just like, well, and he's not paying child support, and this is hard here, and everything can be negative. And instead of finding someone that's 10 years out looking back and saying, oh man, I remember how hard that was. Walk with me towards freedom. Walk with me towards a healthier place. So sometimes we're not asking people for help because we've done it before, but we've asked the wrong person and we need somebody a bit further. I also think sometimes we don't ask for help just because we like to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
We like to feel like we can do it all on our own. I see this in the workplace for sure. I see it in my life in lots of ways because I am a headstrong, confident female. So I had hip surgery at the end of last year. And my parents were coming in town to help, and Brian's doing these things, and my parents are doing these things. And it was in the middle of COVID and all kinds of quarantine restrictions. And I had lined everything up with Brian and my parents so that I wouldn't need help from anyone because my parents want to help. Brian has to help.
He vowed.
He got the short end of the stick. He has to help. My kids are going to have to do extra things, but I remember it was like the day before my surgery when I got an email for Eleanor's dance recital that was on a Saturday, and there were just a few things that were no longer lining up. My parents, because of their age, were wanting to stay away from crowds of people, and Eleanor needed to be somewhere when Brian needed to be coaching a game somewhere else, and my older kids were out of town, just all these things. And I just sent up a crisis call. Heather, can you get Eleanor to her dance recital? And let's be honest, little kid dance recitals go on for hours and hours and hours. And no offense, dance instructors, those little kids are not that good. It's cute if one of yours is out there, but even when you're watching the numbers where it's not your kid, it's just kind of like, whoa, this is going on forever, and these kids can't really dance. Anyway, I needed help. Heather, will you get Eleanor to her dance recital? Not only that, will you pick her up from point A? Will you change her into her costume at point B? Will you deliver her over here? Will you take pictures of her? And you just said, yes, just consider it done. Don't worry about it. But level of relationship. I didn't want to ask for help because I had already done everything to take care of myself.
Well, and
yet I still needed
probably also, when I think about the times that I don't ask for help, I'm always worried about putting somebody out.
I don't want to be a burden.
I don't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
I can just power through.
Yeah.
I can, Father's Day was just the other day, and Whit had asked for fried chicken, but
your elbow.
My elbow. I have tennis elbow, and I don't even play tennis, and it makes handling tongs and things, like ridiculous stuff, extremely difficult. And so Whit's like, what can I do to help?
You're like, fry your own chicken.
I know. I'm going to need you to fry your own chicken because I cannot physically do it. And I did everything beforehand, so all he had to do was the actual frying. But I feel a little bit bad that it's Father's Day and you're making your own lunch, so to speak. I really did everything else, but he had to do the frying. But you feel bad putting somebody out.
Sure.
That I'm going to be a burden. Nobody wants to be a burden, but I think we want to be asked. Like, we do. I knew that you had your mom helping, you had meal train happening. All these people are going to be helping you out.
Yeah.
So what can I do?
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful. Yes, of course. I'd love to take her to dance.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that sometimes we aren't asking and people actually want to help. This is kind of a work example, but my husband has a coworker, super high capacity. This man can do it all and make it look easy. Probably works harder and more than he should, but just had a death in his family. And I was hearing Brian talk on the phone with him. And Brian saying, I've talked to everybody. We're going to keep work off your plate. Don't you think about it? And I can hear him saying, well, I've already reached out to this person, and this person, and told them that tomorrow while I'm on the road, I'm available for calls and available for this. And just his high level of responsibility rising up, and probably it's to a certain degree some control. Like I'm out of control in this area, but I can still do this. And not necessarily asking for help, but Brian saying, okay. And then hanging up and reiterating to all those people, don't reach out to him.
Yeah.
You need something, come to me.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't ask for help because we're not in a situation where we can. We don't have it in us to do it. And you need people close enough to you to see through your inability to ask and help anyway.
Yeah. Because I've been in numerous situations where people are like, well, what can I do to help? And I'm like, I don't even know.
Right.
So I'm just going to keep doing it all.
Right.
Because I don't even know what to tell you.
Right.
And, I've been in situations where you walk into somebody's house. A friend of mine was so sick. You're pregnant and you morning sickness, that's what it's called.
Oh my goodness. Places my mind goes, I was like, they were about to die. And you're like, morning sickness.
Okay. They were about to die.
Yeah. Right.
But they were so sick that they couldn't do the dishes, and I mean, they had dishes piling up in the sink. And so I just had gone over to see them and how's it going? And I see all these dishes in the sink and I'm like, hold up, I can do these dishes for you. Like, she's not going to ask me to do them because she feels bad that there's so many dirty dishes and they've been sitting there for days. But I'm like, I can easily do these dishes for you. That you just sometimes need the friends in your life that will walk into your situation and take charge.
So we've talked about why certain people don't ask for help, but maybe as followers of Christ, we should flip the script and we should be looking at, if you're a true follower of Christ, are you looking for opportunities to provide help even when it's not asked for? When you're in your workplace, like I know if you work at a church, sometimes summers are a little bit slower. If you have some extra time, are you looking for a colleague or a coworker that's drowning with work while you're sitting twiddling your thumbs? And can you offer some assistance and some help there? Can you step into what they're doing and say, let me take this off your plate? Not how can I help? Because that's a hard question for nearly everyone to answer. But instead, I see you working on this project. Would you let me take that piece for you? I'd love to take that piece right there. They may still say no, but I see that something's going on with one of your kids. I don't need any details. I'm not fishing for information, but how can I love you well right now? Cooper has a classmate that's not going to be returning to our school next year. And none of my business why. It was, I think, a mutual decision. But as soon as I found out, I just reached out to the mom and said, I heard and I love you. And if you need anything, let me know. I'm praying.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't we step into people's worlds and just show them the love of Christ? Because what we have uncovered is people are uncomfortable asking for help.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that there's situations like that where, I believe that our church, but maybe hopefully the church in general has come a long way in this, where if somebody was going through something, their child is removed from a school or going through a divorce or something like that's seen as a situation of, I'm going to say sin.
Oh, sure.
And therefore untouchable. Like we can't, that might rub off on me, so I better keep my distance.
Yeah.
And I really believe that as followers of Christ, that when somebody is going through a situation of some sort of pain or whatever, that we should be stepping into those situations and saying, I love you no matter what.
Yeah.
And maybe there's times where I don't agree with the choice that you're making, but I'm still going to love you. We'll step in and love somebody when they've had a baby and bring them food.
Right.
But do we step in and love them when their child is going to rehab?
Right.
Or do we step in and love them when their child is having a baby out of wedlock?
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's sin involved, so I have to keep my distance, which I think all of us have experienced that on one plane or another where we're just like, I don't know if I can get myself messy in that situation.
Yeah. We serve a God that fully embraced the prodigal son. So sometimes it could even be you are the one in sin. I cheated on my spouse and therefore it resulted in divorce, but I'm now broken and repentant and want to lean into the Lord. Who's going to run to you? It should be the body of Christ. It should be the body of Christ. This is one last example before we begin to wrap, but I think because it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and I was talking to a friend about it, I think that some people don't ask for help when they know that they're struggling with something because it's a mental health issue. One of the things that sometimes we skirt around is people struggling with mental health issues.
Yeah, that has a big stigma.
Big stigma. Heather's laughing because she typically says stigmatism, which is actually an eye issue and not a mental health issue, but that's fine. It's so prevalent right now, not just outside of the church, but inside of the church and everywhere. And I think our numbers of mental health issues skyrocketed as a result of isolation from COVID and things like that. But sometimes if you don't know how to handle your own mental health, you don't ask for help. And then sometimes if you're on the other side and you've never struggled with anything like irrational thoughts or behaviors or what have you, and someone else is struggling with that, it's like, whoa, abandon ship, get away from them. How do I do it? And I think it's an area in the church that both sides need to learn someone struggling with mental health issues needs to learn how to ask for help in a safe place. And you can go through those type of exercises with your counselor where they can guide you in who and where and when do you ask for help. And then on the other side, if you've never struggled with those things, you need to learn to absorb people's pain without judgment. Because if you've never had an irrational thought and someone confides in you that I've had this irrational thought, and they're only telling you so that they can grow and strengthen themselves, but you've never experienced it, you could just quickly be like, whoa, that person is crazy, which is the last thing they need.
Yeah.
Just learning how to absorb pain. So I feel like kind of overall, this whole time what we've been talking about is people are afraid to ask for help for a multitude of reasons. And as followers of Christ, we should be stepping into the gap, whether they're asking for help or not, and loving people well. I keep saying this is the last thing, but there is one more thing. Some people are needy. Some people just ask and ask and ask and ask and ask for help, and they can't figure out why other people are not stepping in and helping them. It's not your inability to ask for help. It's your dependence on everyone else that is pushing people away.
That's a whole
nother episode.
That's a whole nother episode.
But worth just tossing out there that if you're super needy and you're always in need of help, you're going to find yourself in a situation. You're going to be listening to us and saying, I do ask for help. And there's a reason people aren't stepping up to help because you're just so needy. And my answer to everything is go to counseling because we're not able to talk you through everything today.
Or find a safe person.
That's good.
And somebody that you have asked for help before, maybe asked many times, and just say, all right, I need you to shoot it to me straight.
And approach them with humility and a humble heart. Because if you approach them saying, listen, I asked you for help on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Tell me why you weren't willing to help. No one wants to respond to that confrontation. No one wants to be made to feel horrible because you have an issue and you can't see it. No one wants to be made to feel bad. But if you will truly humble yourself and say, could you help me understand? Like, I feel like I need so much help and no one's coming to my aid. What am I doing? Where am I off? Where am I getting this wrong? How can I get better? And you may need to ask somebody slightly outside of your core inner circle because that's an intimidating question.
It is. Yeah. That's only the question to ask if you really want to get better.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, because if you really want to get better, you're going to ask in a place of humility and a place where you can hear and receive their answer. So, this was a doozy.
Yeah, I think we can keep talking about this.
Okay.
Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, or maybe if you have a question about this. I think another thing that we can talk about, and we won't answer this today, is talking about shame and how that isolates us. Like there's two responses to shame that when we're feeling it, the way that we respond is either isolation or not showing up as our real self. That we show up as what we feel like is going to be accepted and what's presentable. So let's leave it there as a cliffhanger.
That's a good one because I've got lots of words just swirling up in my heart. Okay, we'll leave it there as a cliffhanger. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. Well, if you like this podcast, would you please share it? I have so many people tell me, I love your podcast. I just listen every week and it's so great. Would you share it? Because what we want is this to help people that might be outside the church to realize that they are loved and accepted and welcome just as they are. Yes. That as surfacing these topics, that we all recognize that these are things that we bump into, that we struggle with.
Yeah.
And so we want to have as many people included in this community as possible. So if you love us, would you share us with the people that you love?
Subscribe and share.
Yeah.
That helps just get the word out because like Heather said, we want people to feel loved and included. And then last but not least, you didn't say this, but you kind of alluded to it. You may want to keep a conversation going or start a new conversation for Heather and I. You can text Life in Motion. That's just 3 little words, Life in in motion to the number 23101. And then you can text in what your question or your topic would be. Listen, this is the key. This is anonymous. We're not tracking you. We don't know who you are. We're not trying to follow up with you. You can have something really off the wall that you're like, I really wish they would talk about this, but I would be horrified if they knew I asked.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Well, I think we all have kind of questions bubbling inside of us that if they really knew what was going on, if people really knew what was going on, then I would be rejected.
Absolutely.
And so if you need a safe place to say, my husband's driving me crazy, how do I...
Because we are so good at marriage advice. But anyway, whatever.
We'll try to answer that because our husbands have never driven us crazy.
Zuzu's perfect. Whit and Brian are perfect. So, but anyway, on a serious note, we would love to hear from you. Either a topic you wish we'd discuss, a question you'd like an answer to. We are not experts at anything,
but we're willing to talk about it.
So anyway, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.